What's that? Who there? Whoa.
Number one would be like, make sure you, whatever business or industry or product you're in, like have a material advantage, a physical advantage of some sort. Don't come in here and take the same thing that people have already been making and try to just describe it differently. Really challenge yourself to say, hey, I have a true competitive advantage, as we were discussing earlier, in this space, and that's what I'm going to build upon. You might be the most intelligent person on earth, the most ambitious and diligent person on earth, but it is really good to have that in your back pocket to fall back upon at the end of the day. I think number two, don't study and overthink a lot. But what you need to do is, like, you need to go out and test this thing immediately. I recommend that everyone, and this might be outdated, I might be dating myself, but I recommend everyone who talks to me about entrepreneurship read Steve Blank, his book called 4 Steps to the Epiphany. It is probably like the most simple, straightforward, broken down manual for how to discern whether this is going to work. And basically, he draws a contrast between the old model, which was called product development. A bunch of MBAs come up with what they think is a great idea, raise a bunch of money, and throw it out in the world, and either flops or maybe it does okay or whatever. But who knows? Wow. I don't want to start a business with that much uncertainty. He draws a contrast between product development and customer development, which is focusing less on, okay, what are we going to sell, but what do people want? Where are they now? Who are they? And what would they pay for already, right? So an example of that when we started Buffy was, before I started Buffy, there's almost like a live in fear. I invite you to live in fear of failure, because I didn't know if anything would be successful or work. So I took the smallest steps forward. And really, before Buffy, to give you an example of this, I started a brand called Charm with like a Squarespace website that I made like an afternoon with like some sample comforters that I had created, or actually 10 different versions that we were just like shipping out of literally a storage space, like one of those that you can rent monthly, where like we had like boxes and wrapping paper and like shipping tape, and like I did that for 3 months, just selling like a few $100s of comforters a week, just to like figure out, do I even have a business here? When I run ads to drive traffic to my website here, is it like good ROI? Does it even make sense? Are my unit economics straight? Like, will this even work? Right? And like that was a really low risk, lower cost, substantially lower cost way of like, again, discerning will this work, right? And I learned a lot about what do I actually have to say, what do people actually need to hear to understand what I'm trying to say, right? So that's number two. It's like, have a material competitive advantage. Second is like customer development, and like just test it before like you slam your foot on the gas, right? The third one, I guess, this is, I think, very specific to my business, but if you're going to start a consumer brand, I think there are like a few different models, but I feel like one contrast you can create is like, I feel like there's like the Caspers of the world and like the Patagonia, right? The difference that I'm trying to draw there, and there's so many that you can read into, but the difference that I'm trying to point out is like, I think Casper was like, there's a market opportunity. Some consultants got together, they saw a market opportunity, and they were like, let's just slam dynamite into this crevice, get as much leverage as we can, and blow up this market opportunity, right? That's very different from a brand, right? Which I think is built over time in terms of its currency being trust, identities, and stories and experiences that necessarily need to accumulate in real human beings that ultimately drive the highest ROI forms of growth and the highest margin forms of profitability, that is the only true lightning in the bottle when it comes to consumer. Right? When it comes to consumer packaged goods, there is no form of lightning in the bottle except for a truly organic built brand. Right? I think there are some companies in the middle, etc., but I'm just trying to tease out a difference. I think if you're going to do something in the consumer space, which I feel more comfortable speaking to, decide what your values are and really try to commit to using your brand to bring those to life. You're not going to win by like just exploiting some market opportunity. I would say, just to maybe like synthesize what we were talking about earlier, there's a leaner way to do whatever you're doing, a simpler way to do whatever you're doing, and a scrappier way to do everything you're doing. Trust that if it works that way, then it probably should be done that way. Trust that you don't need to like build out a full team to like capture all of these roles and responsibilities if these two people are handling and delivering and getting something done, for example. Right? I think a lot of entrepreneurs, CEOs, and founders can be so focused on growth. They believe that we need to have so many products, so many places where we show up, and so many teams. We need to stand all this up, and we need to put so much money toward doing all of it. And they're not wrong, right? But until you've like gone through that and actually measured each of those things out for yourself in your own experience, I encourage you to err on the side of less is more. As I've, I think, learned myself and shared some failures today around why I feel that way. I think lastly, know what kind of entrepreneur you are. I think I would have loved to, I'm still, I think of myself, maybe young isn't the right word, but immature in many ways as a entrepreneur or a leader or manager, etc. Right? There's a lot of experiences that I'm only having now. And again, I think one of the great things about Buffy was that it taught me how much I don't know and how much, the sliver of things I'm good at and the huge wedge of things that other people are really good at, better at me at, right? I know you hear that all the time, but it takes a great slap in the face to really let that sink in, right? One example of that, I think, is for me, if I were to go back, again, like talking about culture, I think I would have been a great leader and manager if the entire room were made out of quantitative management consultant types. That's what I know. That's the home I came from. That's the culture that I felt was the norm, right? But it wasn't for a lot of other people, right? And I think their experience at Buffy could have been better if I had more experience working within their cultures, right? And I do wish so much for everyone to have a great time working where they work because it's where you spend an incredible amount of your day. I think my instinct now would say like, hey, you know who you're good at working with, you know who you're good at directing and leading, try to stick with that, right? And try to use